Hi, this is Cal Ripken Jr., and you're listening to the ML Sports Platter.
ML Sports Platter back with you all over the major platforms, Spotify, Google, Apple. You know what to do. Download, subscribe, leave feedback, and a 5-star review. Big time thanks to Stanley Law Offices, Brian Conboy of Mass Mutual New York State, and our good friends over at Sit Means Sit Syracuse. Best dog training around, any breed, any dog, any behavior. Go take your pup there and get the best one-on-one training. Free consultations are available. SitMeansSit.com in Central New York. David and his team doing an amazing job. He is on Twitter at Scott Pitoniak, the longtime insider, author, storyteller, TV contributor, doing awesome work now with the Rochester Business Journal, a frequent guest on the ML Sports Platter. We're going to talk some Yankee baseball and some MLB overall, little Tony La Russa and more. Scott, welcome aboard here again. It's great to have you back, and man, we got a lot to talk about.
Hey, it's always great to be on here with you, Mike.
So remember when no-hitters were fun? remember what? Now look. I don't want to be the negative Nancy get off my lawn guy. Although I am getting up there in years, by the way. But they used to be special. We had 2 right in a row, right on consecutive days. The Corey Kluber story, him coming back, and so far what we've seen obviously surpasses the no-hitter without a doubt. Just his overall body of work and what he's been able to do. But, Scott, it's too easy. I'm sorry. I mean, this launch angle stuff, the over-swinging, that means pitchers are now adding more splits and change-ups. You can just go look at the percentage of what aces are using as far as fastball versus all the off-speed. I just think the no-hitter, we're kind of losing the specialty of it.
Yeah, it's, and baseball's gone through a lot of these different trends where, too many home runs. And then now the pendulum obviously has swung way toward the pitcher. This is, we're getting back to 1968 territory here in terms of, ball, although this is even worse because there's, vastly fewer balls being put into play. It's just an all or nothing game. Strikeouts don't bother anybody anymore. It used to be an embarrassment and stuff, and now it isn't. And so baseball, there's larger issues at work here that we've talked about. And, I've been on this whole thing for years about the pace of the game, and even more so than the length of the game, it's the pace of the game that they need to speed things up and so forth. But I really believe now, Mike, that this supersedes that in terms of a problem that baseball is facing, is that there are not enough balls in play. And, the whole analytical approach here of, the 3-run home run, whatever, wait for that. Strikeouts aren't that bad. And, let's just wait for that big bop time, because that's what the percentages say and so forth. Well, it's made for a game that we both love. It's made it, harder to watch.
Yeah.
And I love the game. I think baseball fans in particular tend to be harder on their game than any other fans. And part of it is, part of it is I just think there's a deeper love for it than any other sport, because of the tradition, the history, and how it's so intertwined with who we are as a nation and so forth. But, it is also a sport that has been so resistant to change or whatever. And I think we're getting to a point here, where the pitchers are too dominant. They have become too dominant. And, I have vivid memories of 1968, and Bob Gibson in a 1.12 ERA and Carl Yastrzemski winning a batting title with a 301 average. All those sorts of things.
But see, the difference is, just to quickly add this in before we continue, the difference to me is that I wasn't around then, but I know the history of the game. I know that year him and Denny McClain were obviously unbelievable. The difference is there were still really good hitters, and I feel like it was man against man, and the pitcher was beating the hitter, where now there's an idea that's been implemented into how it affects the skill of one of the sides, which is the hitter, with the analytics part that creates the pitcher to be even more dominant, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah. I mean, the whole launch angle thing, and like, hey, we don't care if you strike out 3
right.
times, or
who cares?
Who was it? Who struck out 5 times recently? Was it Stanton or Judge? Somebody did. Like
everybody strikes out 5 times a game. It feels like
and guys, 200 strikeouts in a season. Like, I mean, that would be just like beyond acceptable in the past. But they're certainly the approach to the game and the influence of analytics in this approach have hurt the aesthetics of the game, I guess is the way I would put it. And it's interesting, I applauded this hire, and I don't know, it really didn't get as much play as I thought it would. But when Rob Manfred hired Theo Epstein, I go, that's a good hire. And Theo Epstein, he's part of this problem, right? But Theo Epstein realizes it's a problem.
Yeah.
This is the way, like, the percentage-wise to win or whatever, this is how we have to do it with the game. But he also realizes that it's turned the game into an extremely boring game. And it's not a game that is going to attract younger people, which baseball has had a problem with, going on for a while for a number of reasons, I think. So this, I was hoping, and maybe it'll still happen, that, Theo Epstein is going to use that analytical, data-driven mind of his to come up with solutions to undo this trend, towards the launch angles and blah, blah, and all this, that. And you can't just change the baseball to solve this problem. You know what I mean? Because we saw, like, the juiced up baseball, right, over the last 5 years, and that was ridiculous too. So that contributed to this. Think about it, because, now I look back and, he's been a loyal Yankee and he's solid and so forth, Brett Gardner and stuff. But now I look back at his home run totals and I'm going,
Yep.
Yeah, that was the juice stuff.
And he's another one. He can't put the ball in play for anything.
No, and look, again, he has been a good Yankee. They'll go overboard and retire his number like they do with everybody now.
Sure, give him a plaque, ridiculous. Man. 18th place, give him a trophy. Give him a trophy.
Yeah, yep. It's not enough just to say, give him his day, and then that's enough.
Right there with Babe Ruth. Put him right in there.
Yeah, that's another story. But you know where I stand that whole thing. But he's overmatched. He can't play anymore. I mean, I know he's up to 200, which is something, when you look at this lineup and whatever. But it's not just the Yankees. I mean, this is throughout baseball. As we speak, there's like 3 or 4, teams that are hitting 250. That's the high water mark right now. And, the Mendoza line, like, hey, Mendoza, he'd be thriving now,
He
right?
really would be. Yeah, I don't know if you heard, I did a few days ago, I did a podcast just around the bigs where I hop on and just go all over the league and storylines and injuries and, division leaders and talk about some things that I've seen and some takeaways just in general. And it's a way longer segment now in podcast form than what I used to do. I used to do it on radio all the time. But I got into like diving and as I was talking, clicking into rosters. And there's a few teams. I mean, I know the total average is awful, but there's only a few teams where there's 4 or 5 guys with like respectable batting averages, Scott. I mean, between 235, 240 at the low. But like I'm talking, when I say respectable, I'm talking like 260, right? 270. I mean, I think Johnny Bench is a lifetime 262 hitter. But he was also one of the greatest catchers of all time. But, between that 270, 320, 340, it's like Toronto, it's Houston, there's a couple other ones, Scott, and everybody else, it is, your eyes you can't even believe what you're looking at.
Oh, no. And so it's there's a big problem here, and it's got to be addressed. And, I'm hoping Theo can be part of the solution since, he helped create this monster.
But he's been in the office for a long time and nothing's happened.
I know. And I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. I will say this. Look, I'm a purist and traditionalist, but I am not resistant to change. Nobody wants to do, we can't touch anything with this beautiful game. No, you have to.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you have to. Because I don't want to see the game die. Okay?
I know.
And I got too many people, you can't do anything. No, you can't. I don't care. If it takes a freaking pitch clock to speed this game up, put the clock in. If that's what, I don't care, purists, on that. I want the game to survive and thrive and so forth. So hopefully, they're really looking at the experimentation of things that they're doing in the independent league. And I don't believe, and God forbid that we go from 60 feet 6 inches, to 61.6, oh my God, that's going to change everything. Oh my goodness gracious. We can't do that. The records were destroyed during the steroid era, by the way. So let's not even go there. Again, they got to look at things. They've got to look at how can they make this a better game. Because you know what? I can talk about Willie Mays and Mickey Mantle and this and that. But the reality is the athletes today are bigger, stronger, faster, and we don't get to see them make plays. And that is a huge part of this game. I like defense. I like guys running. I like throws. We're not seeing enough of this, Mike. You're like, okay, boom, oh, wow, their exit velocity, and that thing went 437 feet, and it was out of here in 119. And now, I'll criticize, we in the media, too. We're so fixated on that. Do we have to watch every freaking ball game? We got to, all right, let's look at that. And the arc of that, fly ball and blah. And, it's good to a certain extent, but now, these, broadcasters are so overly dependent on this crap. But anyway, so having gone on that rant, but to go back to Corey Kluber, I think it's a hell of a story. And I enjoy watching him pitch because, he isn't one of these, 6'8", throw 102 mile an hour pitchers. He pitches, and I enjoy that aspect of it. And I thought, the number of curveballs and changeups and stuff that he threw the other night, and the way his ball moves, particularly side to side, is very unusual. We usually see up or down, right, with a lot of movements and on pitches and stuff. So, and I was looking back too, Mike. It's the 12th no hitter in Yankee history, and so we like to rank things or whatever. So I was just looking through, and they've had some incredibly historic no hitters and some incredibly emotional ones. Obviously Don Larson's significance in the World Series, and then having David Cohn on the day that Yogi and
what a day! What a day that was!
It's all part of Yankee lore, right?
It is.
Or
Yep.
Jim, excuse me.
Back when they were actually savages, yes.
Right, and Jim Abbott.
Yeah.
Jim Abbott. I mean, it's one of the great moments in baseball history if you really want to get. But Corey Kluber, it's probably in the middle, of these emotional, historically significant no hitters, and because he has an incredible story. This is a great comeback that we're watching. It really is. Can he sustain it? We'll see. I mean, he's at 35 or whatever, but he's looking awfully good, and he is following kind of a career trajectory before he was hurt, in that he was traditionally, even in those Cy Young years, he was a slow starter. He had bad Aprils.
Yeah.
And so he's coming back from, and the other cool thing I was thinking the other night is which is kind of, again, part of a little bit of that Yankee lore, is that here he is, he was Texas the year before, and he pitches one game, right? And then they had these leftover bobbleheads of him and they gave them out that night. This night they were giving out, Corey Kluber, Texas Ranger bobbleheads because, well, why not? You got all they are is taking up space, and he goes out and he throws a no hitter, for the Yankees. Yeah. So it was all kind of cool. But I am in agreement with you. I love a great pizza. I love great homemade, Italian sauce and stuff. I don't want it every day. I mean, I have my limit. Okay, all right, Mike, I've had the pizza 3 days in a row, and it's great. but now I'm getting a little sick of it, So,
well, hey, you can buy a Corey Kluber no-hitter T-shirt though. If you change your mind, you can buy because they make a T-shirt for everything these days.
Yeah.
By the way, I know that you, when you read it, were like me, finding out about the news. This Jeter documentary is just, I mean, I can't wait for this, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait for it, and I'm hoping that there's a part in the documentary that focuses in really on, the last 5 or 6 years. So many of these analytical geek heads, Derek Jeter, no range, horrible shortstop, all this other stuff. I'm going, did you ever see, like, you could make an argument his best play of all time is a defensive play. You could make an argument his second best play of all time is a defensive play. He was unbelievable at running in on balls. He was unbelievable at the double plays. He had a million different second baseman as a double play combo partner. He was great with a jump throw. I'm hoping somewhere in there that they address that this guy is just simply never, ever, ever in a same sentence as the word overrated.
Yeah, this is. I'm not totally anti-analytics. I mean, some of the data makes sense. Some of it to me is just garbage. And so forth. Haters are always going to hate, it's like too good to be true. We got to rip them. We got to tear him down or whatever. I'm not saying he's perfect. He wasn't perfect. But any argument of the greatest shortstops of all time, he's got to be in there. And if you want to argue, Honus Wagner, and if you want to argue Cal Ripken Jr.,
though.
You can't go down any deeper.
Yeah.
And the postseason has to come into play. I'm sorry, it is. That bothers me when people. Oh wow, I just can't base it. Well, no, it is part of the. It's not like it isn't going to keep you exclude you from there. Dave Winfield or whatever. It's not going to keep you out, or it's kept Gil Hodges out, unfortunately, which is stupid. But that's another story of the Hall of Fame. But he's just Jeter, and I will admire the fact that he was able to do this on the biggest stage without any major scandals or whatever. And again, he's not perfect. Nobody was perfect. If this is a fairly objective thing, it's going to get into some of that stuff, and how he. He was a horrible quote. We understand that. And, Bill Belichick's a horrible quote. And there was a method to both guys' madness. They didn't want to create any controversy. Aaron Judge is a boring quote. And he probably picked that up from, learned that from Jeter. Like, just don't make any waves. Just be kind of bland and so forth. I mean, I don't think, Mike, we really saw the true, person, remove the veneer and so forth until the end. When he could kindly exhale, he finally could exhale and say, and then I remember that post, press conference. I think it was after the last game at Yankee Stadium, and it was like he's like, I can exhale now.
Yeah.
I gave it all I could give, and there's no need anymore to worry about this or that, you just saw a side of him, and that press conference went on long, if you remember. And I really, that was the first time, I finally got a feeling of the person, that he wasn't letting me in all that time. And I understand about the strategy behind all that, but I'm looking forward to that. And it's, hopefully it's going to be, it's going to be a full-fledged, no holds barred and look, at an extraordinary career, an extraordinary life that he's led. And, let's face it, if they're going to get into him as an executive, he didn't enter that arena very well. And, the whole thing with a scout who had cancer, you need to go there. I'm sorry. And if you're going to let him go, you need to go and do that yourself instead of having somebody else do it for you. That's coward. And I hope they get into that. But also then, he hires a female general manager, and I think he needs to be applauded, for making, a move like that as well. So I just hope that there's some objectivity here, because there was some criticism, with the Michael one that, yeah, they allowed some things, but it was still Michael controlled, didn't want to tick him off or whatever.
Yeah, and Jason Hare, I believe, is directing the Jeter documentary. He directed The Last Dance, so we'll see what happens. And it was funny because so many Yankee fans were coming out after Last Dance, like, man, the Jordan Bulls, we got to get something with the '90s. And the smart ones said that because, let's face it, that's the last dynasty of the sport. That's the last dominant team. I think the Dodgers obviously currently have some potential to equal them, but they've got a long way to go. That Yankee dynasty, as time passes, it just becomes more and more special. Speaking of, I got two quickies to go here, Scott, and then I'll let you run. Again, Scott Pitoniak with us here. Albert Pujols, speaking of the Dodgers, I was floored. I was floored that they picked him up. But when you look at what they're trying to do, again, no DH, but they're trying to build, some first base depth there. They've got Muncy, they got Pujols. He still can kill left-handed pitching. As we record this, he homered last night. The more I dive into it, man, that's a Dodger move. I think it's a good move.
Yeah, it's a good move. That's a team that's been decimated, with injuries and stuff. And so I wondered about it when I first saw it, because I'm thinking he's got to go American League, right? He's got to go American League, and some team that could, utilize him as a DH or whatever, because he's not great in the field anymore, but he's passable, and so forth. So I was really surprised that that's where he went, but it could prove to be a great move, and he knows where he is. Like, look, he's got some milestones. He'd like to get to that 700 mark. It's going to be hard, but he's willing. It reminds me a little bit of the Carmelo Anthony situation with Portland, right? So you're out of the game, and everybody thinks, well, that's it. Nobody's picking him up. So Melo, he still feels he's got game. And he goes there and he accepts that off the bench role, and he's turned it into a pretty good gig where he's climbed up. On, I think he's top 10 now, NBA scoring. He might be number 10 all time. He's fulfilled that role off the bench. He's given them quality minutes and so forth. And so I think to a lesser extent with Pujols, because I just don't think he has as much left in the tank as Melo has shown to have, but I could just see a similar situation where, I'm gonna really accept this because in the back of my mind I want these. Plus, by the way, it might be nice to pick up another ring.
Yeah, no kidding, no kidding. In the final couple minutes I have with you, I wanted to end with the Yankees. They Joe Torre used to say it, just win series, right? Like, right. And when you're below 500, get to 500 and just keep winning series. It's a long year, blah 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 blah. They've done that as we record this. They've the Rays and the Orioles and the Rangers. Okay. But Scott, even when they get you a little bit excited, and there was some home run scoring ways, 2-out base hits, which I love that stuff. We talked about it earlier. I like, being able to manufacture, and I'm all in on the home run. But again, if you balance it out with the other stuff, they've shown glimpses. They always seem to show glimpses. But I'm sorry, I just still don't trust this team when it matters. I don't trust them against better teams, better pitching. October. Runners in scoring position, down 2-1 in the 7th with 2 on and 2 out. Who's going to give you a hit? I don't trust them. I don't know. I don't think the pitching's going to hold up, which then means the bullpen will eventually get taxed. That combination with not hitting with guys on base, it's a recipe for disaster. Do you still feel the way I do, or are you coming around with this club?
No, I still have concerns because, again, I think like the over-reliance on the long ball will come and bite them in the postseason again. and that's why I wanted to see a couple, mix in a couple of table setters. I mean, what the heck, try to and try to do some small ball things sometimes. And, that's still not going to get away from your total approach or whatever. Don't give me the percentages all the time or whatever. So I would like to see that. I'm a little bit more bullish now, I think, Mike, than you might be as far as the rotation. I mean, I'm feeling that maybe, Kluber can hold up, and that's not a bad 1-2 punch. I mean, Cole has been everything we've expected. Yeah, he had a rough outing, big deal. I mean, everybody does. But he's been outstanding. And if Kluber can come, and Herman, I think he apologized. He's kept his mouth shut, and he's let his pitching doing. And I think he's rounding into form because he's got a great arm. There's no question about it. And then, I'm still a believer in Montgomery. I think he's a decent middle of the rotation guy for you. And, there's the, holding out hope of the Luis Severino return, that he can come back and be, the Luis Severino that he was several years ago, for that first half of the season when he was, as dominant as any pitcher in baseball, and you're hoping that, the absence and that hunger and having this thing you love taken away from you, that this is all going to factor in, and he can be he can become that factor during the stretch run. But I do have, I still have the concerns that you have, in terms of when you get into that postseason, it is pitching, defense, and clutch hitting.
Yeah. And
yeah, I mean, there's just too many streaky hitters, Giancarlo Stanton, and he's hurt again, and my goodness, like, you get hurt jogging around the bases. He hasn't even been in the field or whatever. I think, we gotta give kudos to Aaron Judge when he is available, and you got to keep your fingers crossed on that. I mean, he's their best player, and he impacts the lineup. And there's guys like, as we talk right now, LeMahieu's hitting 267. Is that going to continue? I don't think so. I mean, it's concerning a quarter of the way through the season. I just think he's too good a professional hitter that it's all like disappeared, and even in this year of the pitcher. So I think he's still kind of adjusting a little bit. Maybe, and I don't know if he feels like the pressure, like, I got my big contract extension and I really want to deliver on it. And there's no need for him. Like, just go back to being who you are. And if that means, like, this year he hits 313 instead of, 340 or whatever, so be it. But they've got so many holes in that lineup. Is Luke Voigt gonna, is he gonna come around? I was high on Frazier. He's struggling like hell. Urshela has been one of their more consistent players, maybe their most consistent player, and I feel good about him. Torres was starting to come around, and the unfortunate, COVID positive test for him. Can he get back to going? He doesn't have the power. I haven't seen the power. But that's okay. Like, then start hitting some gaps, and we can see some doubles or whatever.
No doubt.
So yeah, I have similar concerns that come October, and I also think, Mike, I didn't think this was going to be an issue, but I think this is going to be a very interesting division. Other than the Orioles, I don't think this is going to be just a cakewalk. That it might have been Boston. I didn't think they were for real. Maybe they are. I don't know. I still wonder about some of their pitching, but and Toronto in there, and there's Tampa again.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right. No, I'm with you. I think it's going to be a fight to the finish. There's no doubt. Toronto, man, they are so much fun to watch as well. Scott Pitoniak, at Scott Pitoniak on Twitter, scottpitoniak.com, the longtime insider, author, TV contributor, and more, Rochester Business Journal. Go get all of his great work. Covered the Buffalo Bills for decades as well, and all of his books on the Yanks and everything that he's done. The content's been amazing. Amazon.com, online, elsewhere where books are sold, in your local bookstores. Go pick up all of his books in addition to the Yanks and the Bills and everything else. Forever Orange is available as well. Scott, thank you so much, man.
Hey, Mike, it's always a pleasure. Love it. Thanks, man.
The ML Sports Platter brought to you by Stanley Law Offices, Liverpool Physical Therapy, Ken's Auto Detailing, and our great friends over at Camillus Golf Club. Go play Camillus if you're in and around Central New York and the great state of New York. 18 unbelievable holes, championship quality, terrific views, awesome greens. Stop in for a burger and a beer afterwards. And oh, by the way, they've got Under Armour apparel as well, quarter zips, polo shirts, you name it. Go to play Camillus Golf Club today. An ML Sports Platter sponsor. Thanks again to Scott Pitoniak. As I always tell you, enjoy the games.